Hey guys, I'm Jordy, and this is your guide to the penultimate boss in Firelands and Ragnaros' right-hand man, the corrupted druid, Majordomo Staghelm.
Beg for mercy now, and I may yet allow you to live. Well, heroes, what is your answer?
Now, despite him being second to last, Majordomo Staghelm is actually one of the easier bosses in Firelands, so I definitely recommend you spend some time on him to get him down on heroic if you're able. While he's been corrupted by Ragnaros' influence, he's still a druid, so we'll be fighting him in a fiery cat form, a prickly scorpion form, and of course, his night elf form occasionally for some castery things. He'll swap between these forms depending on the raid's orientation. If you stack on him as a raid, he'll swap to a scorpion form, and if you spread out, he'll change to a cat form. And we're looking to abuse this, as the longer he's in a single form, the faster each form's abilities will go out. More on that in a second. As far as raid composition goes, this is a normal 2 tank 5 healer fight with a good mix of ranged and melee DPS. Nothing special here. You can likely drop to 4 healers quickly, but just go with 5 and keep it safe until you're more comfortable. Alright, let's get into Fandrel's abilities. First, I want to mention Majordomo has an incredibly high amount of HP. He's kind of a sponge, but there's a buff here that the raid will get during combat called Concentration. This buff increases your damage and healing done by 25% and will increase the longer you haven't taken any damage at all, up to 100% for up to 25 full seconds of no damage. We'll talk about this buff more later, but just know the goal of this fight is to avoid taking any damage at all to increase your output and counteract his massive health pool. Okay, like I mentioned, he's got 3 forms: Cat, Scorpion, and Night Elf. While in Cat and Scorpion, you'll notice he has an energy bar that ticks up over time, and upon reaching max energy, he'll perform an ability associated with whatever form he's in. Each time he performs said ability, he'll gain a stack of adrenaline, increasing his energy rate by 20%, speeding up the time until his next one. However, if your raid stacks or spreads, changing which form he's in, he'll drop the adrenaline buffs and his energy regeneration will return to normal. Alright, let's talk about the first form, the Cat form. Staghelm will maintain this form so long as the majority of the raid is out of melee range of him. He'll melee the tank with moderate damage, and then when his energy reaches 100, he will cast Leaping Flames, jumping at a random player in ranged and leaving a burning disc on the ground that deals moderate fire damage every half second. Additionally, every time he jumps, he'll create a mirror image of himself called Spirit of the Flame that will join the fight until it's killed. It has less than 1.5 million HP, so don't worry too much about it, just cleave it with the boss and make sure your tank picks it up. Alright, that's the Cat form. Now let's talk about the Scorpion form. When the raid stacks on Majordomo, because his adrenaline stacks are getting a bit high, he'll shapeshift to the Scorpion form. Note that the fire patches and Spirits of Flame from the Cat form don't despawn, so just watch them. As a Scorpion, Majordomo only has one real ability when he reaches 100 energy: Flame Scythe. This deals a huge amount of damage in a cone in front of the boss, but is split amongst everyone it hits. So the raid should stack in front of him during this to soak as a group. We'll talk about why you don't see us doing this in the walkthrough, but suffice to say, this is something I'm going to recommend that you never experience and force swap him back to Cat before he can cast this. Okay, so that's the 2 animal forms. Let's talk about his humanoid form. Every 3 swaps, so Cat, Scorpion, Cat, or Scorpion, Cat, Scorpion, on the swap following these 3, Staghelm will stun the entire raid by placing them in fiery tornadoes briefly, and then casting one of these 2 abilities. These should swap back and forth, but we found sometimes he picked the same one twice, so TBD. The first, Burning Orbs. Fandrel will place 5 of these somewhere around him on the battlefield, and after a few seconds, each will shoot a laser to the player closest to it, applying a stacking dot that cannot be cleansed. If you're only taking one of these, it's not so bad, but often multiple will be zapping you, so move away from them. And remember, you've got that extra damage buff from not getting hit, so these are especially bad as they'll drop your buff if you are hit, so watch them. The other and more dangerous ability is Searing Seeds. Fandral will debuff the entire raid with this, creating what is essentially a bomb on the player that will explode once the debuff expires. Each player will have a different timer on their debuff, so some will need to explode quickly and some late, which creates this cascading effect of players moving out, popping, and then moving back in. Unfortunately, this ability means that you will lose your concentration buff. It is what it is. There was some discussion about whether a fully absorbed Searing Seed would allow you to keep it, but on the PTR, it was still removing it. RIP. Okay, once either of these abilities goes out, Fandral returns to whatever druid form the raid was oriented for and the fight continues. And that's really it. It's not too bad of a fight. Let's get into the walkthrough and see how we abuse some of these mechanics. Alright, so on pull, we spread out around Fandral and start to blast him. Because we're spread, he'll immediately shift to cat form and your tank should pick him up. The entire raid should be building concentration buffs at this point, and the only person taking damage is the tank. Your DPS should increase pretty quickly from here. Once the raid reaches 100%, we pop Lust and Crank. About 18 seconds into the fight, Fandral's energy should reach 100, and the first leaping flames goes out. The split second you see him facing you, you should boot or run out. Blink, whatever. Try to avoid getting hit by this as it drops your damage buff. It's possible, but requires quick reaction times. The tank then picks him back up and pulls him back into position while grabbing the Spirit of Flame, and we just continue. He should jump a couple more times, and then after about the third or fourth jumps, it's starting to get too quick for it to be worth, so we all stack on the boss and he'll swap to the Scorpion. Okay, so the raid should mostly have full damage from concentration built up. We're going to be looking to avoid the Scorpion's ability here, as it requires the entire raid to soak a cleave. So once the Scorpion's energy is over 75, we'll call for the raid to re-spread out and Fandral will shift. This time to Night Elf. You'll likely see burning orbs first, hopefully clustered together, but you'll want the raid to move as a group away from the orbs and put the two tanks between the raid and the orbs. The tanks will work to swap back and forth, with the off tank between the orbs and the main tank for about 10 stacks before moving into the boss and allowing the main tank to soak some stacks. Once the off tank stacks have fallen off, he'll move back out to soak. We do this until the orbs disappear, which should be up for a full minute, so keep an eye on them and deal with them while they're active. While they're doing this, the raid should still be moving in and out to swap Fandral and dealing with fire patches. After another 3 swaps, we'll get the Night Elf form again, and the entire raid will be hit with Searing Seeds. It's up to you, the individual raider, to watch the timer on your debuff and move out of the raid if yours is about to pop. These cannot be bubbled or blocked, as they will still explode and cause damage to everybody around you. And also, if you die, your seed will explode, which can cause a chain reaction and kill anyone, so just be a responsible raider and run out, let it pop, and then run back in and keep pumping. And really, that's it for this fight. It's a little dance of stacking, spreading, moving around the room to avoid the orbs, and popping seeds. If you managed it long enough, he should go down, and you can finally enter Ragnaros' fortress yourself and confront the Fire Lord. Alright, let's talk about some tank tips. This is a big positioning fight. Work to keep the boss stationary while you need to, and then when burning orbs goes out, you want to quickly get it to a place where you're between the orbs and the rest of the raid. If for whatever reason your raid doesn't spread fast enough, you're gonna eat a flame scythe, and you will absolutely die. So get a quick battle res and try to recover. It can happen, but should be avoided. And for the healers, remember, the concentration buff works for you just as much as it does the DPS, so work to move out of those leaps and keep your HPS high. And if you have some downtime, don't be afraid to DPS here. The boss has a huge amount of HP and any little bit helps. Also, if the burning orbs goes out and you see that a DPS might be closest to an orb and eat a laser, be a bro and move between them and the orbs so that you take the hit. Your DPS is much lower and it saves them their concentration buff. A good hero play here can go a long way. And for the DPS, this is all about avoiding being hit. So dodge the leaps, quickly move away from the orbs, and keep that buff up as long as possible. Also, make sure as soon as the raid leader makes a call to stack or spread, you listen and listen quickly, as any stragglers can lead to an extra cast of the leap, or God forbid a flame scythe goes out, so respect the mechanic and move. And that's it for Majordomo Staghelm. It's not too bad of a fight, so definitely give it a go on Heroic if you can. If you enjoyed this guide, do me a huge favor and like and subscribe. It helps me a ton and I super appreciate it. Next up, Ragnaros himself. So stay tuned and I'll see you guys in the next one.